You are slow to learn, Lord R.R. Distrusting me was the wisest thing you've done since you climbed down off your horse. Bam! Littlefinger slam! Heyo! Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, a full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, starting with the Game of Thrones. I am your host, Zach. Eyeing me skeptically over here is Nate.
Hey, you're a mess.
You love my different takes on the intros, so don't even act like you don't.
You're really weird.
Anyway, we hope you guys are having a great month, a great week, a great life in general, I guess. We are right in the thick of things now, as far as Season 8, as far as the book. We're getting...
Well, I think at this point, with this episode, Season 8's done.
Season 8's done?
I don't know. You have the calendar, don't you?
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so...
It is, indeed. It's been done for a week.
Well,
you know...
Get your act together.
Your opinion matters very little to me.
But apparently I'm stating facts right now, so come at me, bro.
I don't have a parent, namely, so I can't.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. We'll just leave that silence in there.
I guess so.
Joke landed. Anyway, we've been getting a lot of great feedback. We wanted to take a couple seconds here at the top of the show to read a review we got recently on iTunes.
On iTunes.
On iTunes.
So this review comes from fan Brandy Glows.
Hey, Brandy
what
Glows.
Up, Brandy? So it's titled Must Listen for Game of Thrones Super Fans.
Super.
I haven't read the books, but I love the show, and so I listened to the response episode for the first show of Season 8. Love it. Makes me want to read the books. Also, notably, the audio in this podcast is on point.
On point.
Thank you so much, Brandy. So we put in a lot of effort to make sure that the quality gets better and better with every episode. So, if you stuck with us from the beginning, we thank you for that because, clearly it's hopefully gotten better for you to listen to.
Hopefully.
And that's one of our biggest aims with the podcast, especially the reread part, is to bring new people who haven't experienced the books into that.
Yeah, that is one of the I think the best compliments we've been paid is that we have aided in you wanting to read these books. I absolutely think you should. You can keep listening along if you want, but we will also wait for you to finish. Well, we won't wait. The episodes will wait. They'll still be here. But
they'll be there for you.
Or if it's your first time and you want to read along with us, actually, I've got a best buddy back in my original hometown who, he doesn't give a damn about spoilers. He will start reading a book series, and he'll go look up the way it ends, and then he'll keep reading it, and he just likes to do it that way.
He's weird.
Yeah, he's out there. Shout out Jordan. What up?
Don't shout out to your... Don't shut up.
I could shut up, my friends. He's the one who also helped turn me on to Game of Thrones as well. So
okay,
if that's your style of reading, Brandy Glows, definitely please read these books and just enjoy what made the show what it is.
Especially, I actually posted on Reddit today because somebody was talking about just starting their first read through, and what I wouldn't give to be able to go back and read these books for the first time again.
Without having the knowledge.
Yeah, without the knowledge, because they're just so good that even the rereads are something new every time.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to go back and enjoy it for a first time, what a fucking treat, man.
Anyway, Brandy Glows, we appreciate your review. We appreciate you listening. We just appreciate you in general.
And anybody else who, if you want a shout out on the episode, give us an iTunes review. And like Brandy Glows, we will give it a read here on the episode.
And we'll appreciate you too.
Not that we don't already.
Well, not that we don't already, but...
You're such a jerk.
Wow. Paint me as that guy, all right.
Anyway, so...
If you joined us last week, we were reading Bran 4, and Bran was really struggling with the loss of his legs. He was really, really down in the dumps about it.
But he got a little bit of a uplifting when Tyrion Lannister visited him.
Yeah, Tyrion gave him the saddle and at least provided him a way to ride again.
We were kind of driven to dislike Robb and his antics throughout the chapter, but then, we kind of feel for him at the end, realizing he's still a child.
You realize that he's still just a boy. And so from the youngest son, not the second youngest son, to the father, this week we will be covering Ned 5, and... as we progress further and further, Ned's chapters are getting
Numbered.
Well, they already were. But
Yeah, but you get it. Actually, they're not in George's books.
not in his books, but in my
number them.
notes they are.
Hell yeah. So it's a fairly short chapter, but we open up. He's in Maester Pycelle's solar. Just Pycelle is kind of greeting him and
Droning on about what a tragedy Lord Arryn's death was and how he's happy to tell Ned anything he wants to know.
yeah. So we kind of are jumping in mid-conversation. Well, the start of the conversation, but they'd already greeted each other.
Yeah.
So he offers some refreshments. He doesn't drink wine himself. And for some reason, I felt it was necessary to note that he doesn't like the wine because it messes with his digestion, just so that I can keep an eye out if we spot him fucking sipping in some wine.
Because he's a lying
later
little
on.
fuck.
Yeah, because fuck Pycelle.
Ned notes that Pycelle then offers, instead of the wine, maybe some iced milk, and Ned notes that it is very fucking hot today.
So it sounds terrible, but for some reason I really want to try some
It does
iced
sound
milk.
pretty refreshing.
But it sounds like, super refreshing, as awful as it does sound.
Yeah, Ned
Sweet
can feel
and
his tunic sticking to him, and thick, moist air had covered the city like a damp woolen blanket. It was gross. It's muggy. It's Florida weather. Sorry, Floridians, but I hate your weather. And that, it just sounds like one of those stifling hot days where no matter what, you're sweaty and wet and gross.
So he politely accepts that glass of iced milk.
Indeed. So Pycelle summons a serving girl and gets the request. Please, bring some iced milk.
I hate that he can just
ring the
a
bell.
little tiny bell and get waited on.
So Pycelle is droning on and on and on about previous summers and
days
the
past
heat and Ned
just
notices
reminiscing
that
about
the heat
shit.
does seem to be getting to him because his eyes are so heavily lidded he looks half asleep as he's talking to him. But
Faker.
Pycelle ends up begging his forgiveness for rambling and says that minds are like swords. I do fear the old ones go to rust, which made me think of Tyrion's.
That me too.
My mind is like a whetstone, but
like a sword and it needs a whetstone. The books. Gotcha.
And so the serving girl comes back, puts the tray of milk between them, and then leaves again. And Pycelle says, "Where were we? Oh yes, Lord Arryn." And he says, we get a little bit into it now where, truth be told, he says, Lord Arryn had not seemed himself for quite some time, but Pycelle had chalked it up to the burdens of his duty. He's hand of the king. He's got a lot of worries and is concerned about his very sickly son and his overly anxious wife. So, yeah, Lord Arryn had a lot of shit on his plate.
So I noted the overly anxious wife thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel as though her being anxious, we know why, and as we are, again, a full spoiler reread podcast, we know that she plotted his death with Littlefinger, and even if she didn't have part in the planning, we're pretty sure she's the one that tipped the poison in.
Yeah.
And so she has reason to be anxious, and it's kind of cool that we're getting this glimpse right here that she was anxious around him for quite some time while he's doing these things when really they're almost unrelated. He's looking into the Lannisters, whereas she's with Littlefinger just
nervous about being caught.
Right.
Yeah. So Ned asks about the final illness that struck Jon Arryn, and Pycelle says that he came to me one day seeking a certain book, hale and healthy as ever, though it did seem as if something was troubling him, which is interesting. Jon Arryn is obviously at this point looking into the lineage. He has some suspicions about...
Yeah, definitely has the suspicions
the
because
prince,
he's troubled
the prince
by
and
it.
princesses, or the princes.
Do you think he was tipped off about something, or just kind of it clicked for him? And
Well, I've never really thought much on this chapter, or about Jon Arryn really at all in this book, reading through previously. This time I actually sat down and thought through, who knows Robert Baratheon in this world besides Ned Stark better than Jon Arryn? So I could almost just see it being like, these kids are not fucking Roberts. Like, they're not acting how Robert acted when he was this age. I would know. I fostered them.
Yeah.
They have no looks of Robert. So I think Jon Arryn is just maybe pretty sharp. Him and Stannis, I do believe, sort of
Stannis
spoke
is doing
about
some
it.
stuff as well.
Stannis bounced, and I correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but I do believe that we get words later that Stannis was told by Jon Arryn about this conundrum here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
And so, yeah, I think it was John. I think Lord Arryn is just pretty sharp.
He came to the conclusion.
But the next morning, he was twisted over in pain, too sick to rise from his bed. When he continued to weaken, Pycelle went to see him himself. But he says, the gods did not grant me the power to save him. Which, one, you're a maester, so, like, I would think that's the science versus the faith type thing.
Yeah.
And then, two, fuck off, Pycelle. You didn't want him to live anyway. But Ned says that I heard you had sent Maester Coleman away when you went to
Yes.
visit him. And Pycelle says, I did, indeed. I respect his abilities and the way he can do things, but he's young, and he even says that Lady Lysa will never forgive me that. And he says, maybe I was wrong, but at the time I
So,
thought it best.
Again, that little line there about Lysa makes me wonder if Maester Coleman's not in on it also.
That could be it.
Because I don't think Pycelle had anything to do with Jon Arryn's death. Because, it's not Lannister related, and he's under Cersei's thumb.
Yeah.
And I think that she's furious because he was trying to, flush him. And
So
get
you
the
don't
poison
think?
floating.
Do you think? And again, I can only really think of the show right now. I can't remember in the books. You don't think that Pycelle let Jon Arryn die and didn't actually try his best to treat him?
Well, so that was because when I was reading through, I saw that she was mad about that, but was that pretend mad where he was actually coming to assist?
I think that's I think that's the beauty of it, is Lysa got pissed because she wanted Coleman to sort of finish the job. Pycelle came in and sort of did the same thing, but she doesn't know that. Because he's under the Lannister thumb, and so I don't know who would give the order, because I don't believe at this point he put Cersei even near Tywin.
Right.
So he would listen to Tywin over Cersei. I don't know if he would listen to Cersei, but she is the queen, so he might listen to a direct command. So if Cersei told him, don't fucking bring him back to health.
Yeah, because she definitely could potentially have reason for suspicion.
Well,
if
Pycelle's loyal to the Lannisters, he could have told her immediately that he was looking for this book on lineages type thing.
Right.
He might have Jon Arryn might have even confided in him a little bit more and said, this is my suspicion. And so it's an interesting, which Maester was actually helping and which Maester was hurting, or were they both?
Well, because that was my thought, is would purging be best for Pycelle to get rid of the poison if he recognized a poison? Or is that going to make it worse? Because I know that they sometimes say for certain chemicals don't induce vomiting.
Yeah, you need to let it pass naturally.
And so who knows which is which?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. We don't know what the poison is at this point, and we don't obviously know how to treat it. But Ned asks him, did Lord Arryn say anything to you in his final moments? And Pycelle answers that in the last stages of the fever, the Hand had called out the name Robert several times, though whether he was asking for his son or the king, I know not. Do you think he's calling out about the bastards and he wants Robert's attention on that? Or?
I think he's trying to explain Robert and the bastards, and that he,
in his poison state, that's about all he can
really get out is Robert, and so
Pycelle goes on and says that when I saw all hope had fled, I gave the Hand milk of the poppy so he wouldn't suffer. Just before he closed his eyes, he whispered to the king and his lady wife, the seed is strong. Pycelle then says that this is sort of in memoriam of his, or as a tribute to his son.
This here again, to me, is the milk of the poppy from Pycelle.
I think it's to shut him up.
And keep him from
let him
speaking
pass.
and saying
Yeah,
things.
I definitely do. It's let him just sleep, and I'm treating him. I'm giving milk of the poppy for his pain. So who's going to question that? And it kind of makes sure Jon Arryn can't let slip anything about the actual incest.
Yeah, and so he says the seed is strong, and that's he claims they think it's because of his sick son.
Yeah.
No, he's strong, he'll grow. We know at this point that's not what he meant, or at least we assume that's not what he meant when we figure out about the Baratheon lineage, which we also learn a lot from. Technically, I read a little bit of it out of order. The Baratheon line from A World of Ice and Fire and Fire and Blood and stuff. And I believe it was the Darrens that the Baratheons originated from. But technically, the Baratheon house was founded by bastards. It's a bastard house. And so it's not...
And they're very closely tied to the Targaryens.
Right.
LOL.
So... Yeah, it's definitely referencing, obviously, the seed within the Baratheon line being strong.
See, for the longest time when I read it, I always thought it was directly referencing Gendry and saying he's a strong man. But it's saying the hereditary gene of the Baratheons is strong, where it's usually a male and it's usually a black-haired male, pretty strong frame. Their seed of the Baratheon male line is very strong, is what he's saying. And we know Robert has bastards everywhere, and so
we'll learn more.
Robert's a potent motherfucker is basically what he's saying, And so Pycelle says that death didn't come until the next morning, but Lord Arryn was at peace after that, and he never spoke again.
And Pycelle made sure he never spoke again with that milk of the poppy.
And Ned asks, did it seem like there was anything unusual about this death? And Pycelle says, no, I don't really think so.
So, just because I think it's worth mentioning, he's sipped at that milk a few times now.
Ned?
And every time he talks about how overly sweet it is, it's still refreshing because it's cold, but that it's just gaggingly
It's too sweet
sick.
for his taste.
And I feel like it's kind of referencing the conversation.
Pycelle, yeah.
And Pycelle himself. And so the milk here that they keep referring to is exactly...
It's Pycelle's sweetness, that fake,
the personification.
False,
He's this just awful bullshit.
Yeah. And so, Pycelle says, no, it was sad for a certainty, but Jon Arryn is at rest now, and his burdens are lifted at last. And so Ned asks, the illness that took him, have you seen it before in any other men?
Yeah, for the most part, he kind of lays it out that, in all his years, it's not anything more or less unusual than any other illness he's experienced.
Every case is different, and every case is alike. Lord Jon's death was no stranger than any other, which, again, if Pycelle is having a hand in it, that's exactly what he would be expected to say.
Exactly.
But, this is the only credit I will give to Pycelle is he toes that line well, where this is also what a maester would say. You know,
and that's
each,
the problem.
Each illness is sort of the same, and it isn't.
Exactly.
So who knows?
So even if he's not aware, a skilled poisoner, that's what they're trying to make everyone believe anyway. And so he's kind of falling, even if he doesn't have any involvement, he's saying all the things he's supposed to. So.
And so Ned says, and I think this is pretty brazen, he says his wife thought otherwise about Jon, this illness being strange. And Pycelle says, forgive an old man his bluntness, but grief can derange even the strongest and most disciplined minds, and Lady Lysa was never that. She's pretty batshit crazy, we know this, but the fact that Ned sort of points out that she's distrusting of the story and everything is pretty brazen right now.
To be dropping names on.
But the fact that Pycelle is also sort of aware of the fact that she's having issues with this. And he says that since her last stillbirth, she sees enemies in every shadow, and the death of her lord husband has left her shattered and lost. So they're chalking it up to her grief, but one, I think she's always just been fucking crazy.
Then throwing the paranoia of actually
and now throwing the paranoia, but I still just think that that's an interesting... Everyone's sort of aware that Lysa is unstable, and Ned straight up asks, she doesn't really think that's what's going on.
Well, that's it. It's so crazy because, I was pissed off throughout this whole chapter that Ned is saying so much. Why are you trusting this man? And even in the chapter before this with Ned, when he was in the small council meeting, he seemed to respect and look up to Pycelle so much, which is expected. He's the Maester, of the Citadel. He's an important dude there, but God, it was aggravating.
Yeah.
But then even at the end, he almost
doesn't trust him.
Right.
But he's still giving him this information.
So
Ned, I love you, dude. But so Ned asked him, "You are certain it was an illness that killed Jon Arryn?" And Pycelle says, "I am. If not illness, what else could it be?" And Ned says, "Poison."
And Pycelle perks right up. All of a sudden, the
sleepy eyes flick open, and he says, a disturbing thought. It's possible, but I don't think it lightly. Lord Arryn showed no signs and was loved by all. What sort of monster in man's flesh would dare to murder such a noble lord?
And Ned says that poison, he's heard, is rumored to be used as a woman's weapon.
Do you think this is Ned trying to direct it at Cersei?
No, I think that's actually a common saying.
I agree, but to me it felt like he had Cersei in mind there.
I feel like that's not crazy for him to, kind of not because he can't directly say I think the queen poisoned.
Well, no,
and
definitely.
So how many other women would be willing to, and so I'm surprised that nobody looks at Lysa just because the grieving widow. Yeah, that's how many. I mean, I suppose it's because we know with today's technology and shit that 9 times out of 10 it's the spouse or whatever who killed. But no, I think he's definitely alluding to it as in the most subtle ways. It's not a...
Well, Ned isn't subtle, though.
Well, which is surprising. It's not...
So Pycelle responds saying, it is said that poison's a woman's weapon. Women, cravens, and eunuchs. And he skirts the conversation. Lord Varys was born in a slave house. And he mentions that it's also used in the free cities. And he mentions that Lord Varys was born a slave in Lys. Did you know this? He says.
So, and once again, it also makes me laugh because Littlefinger comes from the Free Cities, his family.
Yeah,
and
Bravos.
So they, that can work for a few different people, and including the actual perpetrators of the crime.
Yeah, so Pycelle says, "Put not your trust in spiders, my lord." But Ned didn't need to be told this because there's something about Varys that just makes his fucking skin crawl.
Which pisses me off because, like, he's the one you should at least have some faith in, and you put it all into fucking Littlefinger.
Yeah.
Like, you idiot.
So Ned stands up thanking Pycelle, and Pycelle asks if he can assist in any other way, and Ned says he'd like to take a look at the book.
Oh, one more thing.
Yeah, look at the book that Jon Arryn had borrowed, and Pycelle says, "I don't think it will interest you, my lord."
It almost seems like he was trying to talk him out.
Dissuade him, yep.
And so that's why I thought it was funny that Ned kind of threw it. Like, he was getting up and ready to leave and, like, walking out, and he stops, and he's like, just one last thing.
I need the book. I need that book.
Remember that book you thought I wasn't paying attention about?
But yeah, Pycelle says it's a ponderous old tome on the lineages of the great houses, but Ned wants it all the same. So Pycelle says he thinks he has it here somewhere, but he'll find it and he'll have it sent to Ned's chamber. And so Ned asks one last question and says,
such an interesting question.
Was the queen at the with the king at Jon Arryn's bedside during his final moments? And Pycelle says no. The queen and the children were on their way to Casterly Rock with Lord Tywin. And Pycelle actually had to inform them of Jon Arryn's death in a letter. And he says it was the heaviest letter he ever wrote. So right here, we kind of get, I mean, not semblance of all proof, but Cersei wasn't here for this shit. Like,
and so that he wrote to inform her, not to, and not like, obviously, fucking duh, like that's what he wrote for, but like, it's not a, oh, terrible news, it's, hey, person I spy for, here's this information, and there's a new development. Now, we know that pretty quickly after Jon Arryn's death, Robert's heading up into the north, like sending letters. Do you think, did Cersei turn around immediately? Does it say in there? Or did she head off to Casterly Rock first?
I don't know. Maybe.
So because I never knew that she, until this read, that she was on her way to Casterly Rock with Tywin, alone, not with Robert, like.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe her and the kids did turn around and Tywin continued onward. I don't know. But Pycelle continues saying, "Come to see me as often as you'd like, Lord Eddard. I am here to serve." And Ned thinks, yes, but serve whom? And so, yeah. Ned is fucking distrustful of this guy.
And knows that he's serving someone else, but still
is offering him all this information. So Ned heads back to his chambers, and on the way, he gets to the steps to the Tower of the Hand. He sees Arya balancing on one leg, windmilling her arms to try to stay up. So Ned asks, "What are you doing?" And she says that Syrio says a water dancer can stand on one toe for hours. And so Ned teasingly, and I like to ask, which toe? And she,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And Ned asks, "You sure you got to do it here? Because that's a pretty long, hard fall down these steps."
A water dancer never falls. Now, what I immediately thought of with this stuff and never have before is Bran never falls.
Yeah.
Never. And he even said it in his chapter before this one. Never. And she's here saying the same stuff. And especially with the fall, like, never falls. That's exactly what Bran said before he fell to his death.
Well, I think it's interesting that Bran is thinking, I never fall, whereas Arya is aspiring to be this water dancer who never falls. So it's sort of that weird. But she stops balancing herself, puts her leg down, and asks, "Will Bran come to live with us now that he's awake?" And Ned thinks back to the night
they received
that the Raven arrived with word of Bran, and how Ned had gathered up the girls, Arya and Sansa, and took them out to the Godswood.
Yeah, to stand a silent vigil for...
However, they don't have a legit werewood heart tree here. They only have a great oak. It is not an actual werewood in King's Landing. So they kneel before it. They offer their thanks for Bran. The girls ended up falling asleep pretty early on, so Ned kept his vigil alone. And when they awoke, Sansa said that she had dreamed of Bran, and he was smiling.
And then Arya also said she dreamt of Bran.
Yeah.
And that he was a knight.
Yes.
Did they share a dream?
I don't know.
Like, because, you could always make the claim, no, they each just happened to have a... But I like the way that it said that when they woke, they were both surrounded by the blood dragon leaves. Was that blood dragon? Was that dragon's breath?
Dragon's breath.
The dark red blooms of dragon's breath surrounded the girls where they lay.
Yeah.
And is that a foreshadowing of their entire story? Just there's dragonfire coming for them.
Well,
like,
I mean, I think
that's
that's just a pretty startling image to Ned. Of it almost would look like his 2 daughters are lying dead before him.
Yeah.
And so he's keeping this vigil, thanking the gods for bringing his one son back. And they're not in the north. Like, we get that painted pretty clearly. This is an old oak that they're praying to and giving thanks to. And they're in the south, surrounded by all this finery and everything, so the girls are in danger, I think, is sort of that's coming down to.
Now, he starts laying some truths on Arya.
Well, Arya asks if Bran can still be a knight now, and Ned sees no use in lying to her, and he says no, but he could still be Lord of a Holdfast or sit on a king's council. He could raise castles like Bran the Builder, or he could sail across the Sunset Sea as the captain of a ship. And Arya asks, but he thinks to himself, he will never run beside his wolf again, or lie with a woman, or hold his own son in his hands. And he thinks this with just such a deep sadness. Yeah. He's trying to, not scare Arya, but...
So I like that the first thing he mentioned was run with the wolves.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he was
That's what Bran's chapter opened up on, was that he couldn't run. And so, Arya asks if she can do these things. So Ned gives her a kiss on the brow and says, you will marry a king and rule his castle and have his sons and daughters. And it says Arya screwed up her face.
Yeah, and this is all back in the present again.
Yeah. She says, no, that's Sansa. She gets so she gets up and she resumes her balancing. Like, she ain't having that shit.
No.
And so Ned sighs, what's he going to do? And he leaves her there. And he goes into his chambers. He splashes some cold water on his head and he's drying himself off when Alan, the captain of his guard, comes in and tells him that Lord Peter Baelish is asking for an audience. So Ned tells him, have him escorted to my solar. I'll see him immediately.
Yeah. And so he walks in, and Peter Baelish, Littlefinger, is sitting in the window watching the Kingsguard practice down in the field. And he has a few choice words for Selmy, just saying, just being
If only
Peter
his
Baelish.
mind were as sharp of his blade, the council meetings would be a great deal livelier.
And I like that Ned defends him. He stands up and and puts out that he has a lot of respect for Selmy, and good thing he's finally got his trust in at least one person that deserves it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's come to have a deep respect for the Lord Commander, but Littlefinger remarks that he should do good in the tourney at least, and Ned gives
not about
fuck
the tournament.
all about who wins the
tournament. So
tournament.
then he asks what the fuck Peter wants. What are you doing here? Why are you here? And Peter was like, well, I made a promise to your wife, and I plan on keeping that promise, so...
And that kind of takes Ned aback. He's finding it hard to trust in Baelish, who just strikes him as too clever by half, he thinks. But Littlefinger asks him, have you thought to question the hand servants? And Ned thinks that most of them left with Lysa. She did take the whole of her household guard back to the Eyrie, all those closest to her husband. He thinks she did Ned no favors in doing that because he has no one to question. But Littlefinger corrects him. Most, not all. A few still remain here in King's Landing. And there's a pregnant girl in the kitchens and, a couple other nobodies, basically. But the big name we get mentioned is Jon Arryn's squire, Sir Hugh of the Vale.
Yes.
And it says that the king knighted the boy after Lord Arryn's death. Ned sees nothing the fuck wrong with that.
Yes.
Like,
nothing at all.
What? Why?
Yeah, and so it's crazy because, again, knowing that he and Lysa are the ones that planned everything, these 4 were left intentionally. They weren't brought because he needed to have somebody to give the pieces, because obviously fucking Ned needs the breadcrumbs, because he can't figure shit out whatsoever. And having that stuff in place, he's just, because my first thought was, he's got these plans, did he teach them what to say? He's got them there for that purpose. That's why they're fucking there, is he's feeding them this information, even if he's not scripting them and teaching them their lines. He's planting the words that they need to know to give to fucking Ned when he shows up.
Yeah. And so Ned says that he'll send for them, and Littlefinger scowls again and calls Ned over to the window. And he points out and he says, do you see across the yard there at the door of the armory, you see the boy? And Ned asks, what of him? And he says, he reports to Lord Varys. The spider has taken a great interest in you and your doings. And he directs him to the wall. Now look at the wall. You see the guardsmen there leaning on the ramparts.
Is that another of Varys's little whisperers?
Nope, this one belongs to the queen. And he says, notice that he has a very fine view of the door to your tower to note who calls on you. And he just says, the Red Keep is full of eyes, dude. Like, you are being so dumb. Ned has no taste for these intrigues, as we've learned, but he suddenly starts to feel uncomfortable with that guard just being able to look in this window, so he moves away.
Do you think any of those ones he pointed out are actual spies?
Maybe his.
Because part of me was, that was it. Like, are they actually who the spies he says? Are they his spies? Or are they fucking spies at all?
I think so, because I think between, obviously, we get sort of the three spy masters here. We get Cersei, we get Varys, and we get Littlefinger. I think each of them are sort of aware of the top layer of spies, and then, like, maybe 2 or 3 of their, like, second
little
tier.
sub-levels.
And then they've each got, like, their good spies, where, like, they're off the grid. So maybe that one actually is Littlefinger, and it is a boy, so we know the little birds. So maybe that one is Varys, and the guardsman is, that would make sense. A Lannister guardsman, is the queen's. So I think Littlefinger actually is on it, and I don't think it's, like, I think Varys knows Littlefinger knows that's it, and Cersei probably knows that one's known.
Well, Cersei probably thinks that nobody knows her shit.
But the only one who's not aware that there's fucking spies is Ned anyway. Right. So, like, it doesn't really matter if Littlefinger knows.
Peter tells him, he asks, is there anybody in your house that you trust utterly and completely?
And Ned says yes.
And
great. Then I have a great piece of real estate in Valeria that I'd like to sell you for cheap. Like, I fucking love the salesman pitch that Littlefinger just goes into. You're so dumb. And he says the wiser answer was no, my lord. Like, you can't really trust anybody right now. But he says, send this paragon of yours to Sir Hugh of the Vale and the others. You'll be watched extensively, but even Varys cannot keep watch on every single man in your service.
I don't know if that's true.
I don't know if that's true. But Peter turns to leave, and Ned thanks him, calling him back, saying, perhaps I was wrong to distrust you. And we get the closing line of the chapter.
Yes, which is a very big one in the show as well. Mm-hmm. And so I love it, though.
You are slow to learn, Lord Eddar. Distrusting me was the wisest thing you've done since you climbed down off your horse. Bam! Littlefinger slam.
Littlefinger slam, I like it. Littlefinger slam.
Yeah, no, Ned is... Littlefinger's absolutely right there. Like, not trusting Littlefinger is the only smart thing he's done.
Yeah,
and he's not even distrusting him to a level that is intelligent.
Right.
Because he's still playing into what Littlefinger wants.
I don't really like you. That's his distrust level.
Ned, I fucking love you, dude, but...
You're going to die in 5 chapters.
You're going to die...
Maybe 8. I forget how many chapters
I forget the exact
number. I forget if it's 10 or 13, but... Either way.
It was a good chapter. We learned a lot more sort of what's happening at King's Landing.
Yes, we get to see a bit into the kickoff of the War of the Five Kings. Mm-hmm. We get to see what Jon Arryn was investigating, and we're definitely going to be able to dive more into that here, because I think his next chapter will probably be going through the book a little bit, visiting the whorehouses, finding out that Robert has some bastards out there.
Yeah, so you got an inductee for this chapter?
I'm going to give it to because I don't think about it, so I'm making it up on the fly, and I want to give it to the little serving girl, because she has to put up with Pycelle's shit all fucking day. Yeah, the poor fucking thing. Like,
shit.
Has to come running to a little dingling bell, and then he fucking has his dick right above it, too. Ew. Like, it's gross. He's a vile motherfucker, and I feel bad for the poor little girl.
I agree with that.
I'm going to bring her here, give her something fucking good to eat, sit by the fire, give her her own room so she can sleep without worried about getting touched by fucking old man fucker.
Oh, wait, before you go to bed, could you bring me some ice milk? Thanks. My inductee, I'm inducting Littlefinger this week, just for having the straight up balls to do all this and then go to Ned and be like, yeah, you're dumb because here's why and look at this spy and that spy, and also I'm a spy, but you're too dumb to fucking pull out that twist within a twist. So, like, here I am, motherfucker. I'm the cause of all your woes.
It's like the ultimate candid camera type shit. Like, gotcha. Ashton Kutcher's gonna come running out and be like, motherfucker!
You've been pumped. Yeah, no, Littlefinger is just... He's so brazen, and I love it. And I see more and more why he's a liked character. Like, he's charismatic. Even Ned, he's starting to grow a little bit on Ned.
And that's it, yeah.
And, I mean, that's a mistake on Ned's part because it leads to his death. But, yeah, Littlefinger, you're in the...
So let us know who you guys want to induct into the Brotherhood this week.
Yeah.
This chapter. There's a lot of options. Well, there's not a ton in this chapter. I was tossing around the idea of Arya because I just like to induct Arya any chance I get because she's a little badass.
Yeah, she's doing her thing.
Exactly. So next week we're going to be reading
Jon
4.
Yeah.
And I believe that's when Samwell Tarly gets to the wall.
We will be meeting Samwell Tarly.
So that's going to be a fun time.
That will be a good one.
And you can send us your inductees for that chapter as well. We can get those into the episode.
Please do.
If you want to be a couple ahead, I think it's another Ed chapter, Ned 6 probably.
Considering we just read Ned 5, yeah.
Is this Ned 5? That's good to know now that we're finished with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can even send us some inductees for Ned 6.
Yeah, we got Ned 6 coming up. We've got Sansa 2. We've also got Cat 5. So send us any inductees.
You can send those over through the Gmail, Without Manners, Brotherhood @gmail.com. You can always just send me a direct message or tweet me at Manners Without. We do some stuff on the Instagram. We'll always get it if you send it there at Brotherhood Without. And we're on, all the usual, the Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes. Leave us an iTunes review again.
Yeah, that
we'll give you
would
a
be great.
shout out if you leave a review.
Our Patreon.
Oh, yeah, Patreon. We've got Mercy should be out by now. We've plugged that a lot, and I really hope I have done it in time for these, so that way I'm on my game. It's recorded, guys. I just have some editing to do. But it's okay, because my name is in Procrastinate, and so I'm allowed to. That's just how it works. I put the Nate in Procrastinate.
I don't like the validity of that. And so with that, we're going to call it, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Valor to Harris.
Peace.
It didn't stop.
It didn't stop.